So today we're talking about Godot baked LightMaps. Essentially, they are a cheap way to add global illumination to your game without frying your graphics card. I mean, you can even run that game on a mobile and it'll perform fine. But enough of that, you can see I have a game level here that is being lit in real time. And let's go ahead and switch to baked LightMaps. So you can see how they can improve the look of your game, and of course with good performance. So here in Godot, I'm gonna go ahead and create a very bare minimum simple scene to have something to work with. You can go ahead and just use your own level or just follow with me. Just know I'm keeping it very simple and messy, but this should work just fine for our purposes here. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and turn off all of the lighting of the scene, and I mean absolutely everything. So let's go ahead and add the environment to the scene too. And I'm just gonna drag the slider until it's completely black and get rid of the grid so we have a better view of the scene. And I'm just gonna go ahead and add an Omni light as the main source of our light for baking. Obviously, you can add other types of light if you want. Now, in terms of lighting, you can see it doesn't look horrible, but it definitely lacks some shadows. So let's go ahead and turn the shadows on. And we're gonna get this standard looking real-time shadows that are pitch black, and that's because there is no global illumination yet. Now, to bake lights, we are going to need UV2 maps unwrapped for all of the meshes that are going to be used for baking. Now, if you click on a mesh and click on view UV2, you can see that by default, these meshes do not have their UV2 unwrapped. So we're gonna do it from Godot itself. So go ahead and unwrap all of your UV2s. Now there's one more step, and that is we need to add a node called LightMap GI, and this is actually the node that is going to bake our lights into the textures. Now the moment we do that, we're gonna get a button up here that's gonna bake the light maps, but before that we need to actually save the file that's going to be the settings for the light map. And because I have one already here, I'm just going to replace it here. And when you do that, it's going to bake the light maps for you with the default settings, and you can see that the shadow is not pitch black anymore, but we can do better. So when you click on this LightMap GI node, you're going to get these spheres which are called light probes. I'm going to explain what they do later in the video, but for now let's go ahead and turn them off from the gizmos menu so we can see clearly what we're doing. And that said, we pretty much baked light into this scene, and if you turn off that Omni light, you can see the shadow kind of disappears, but we still have this ambient occlusion type of lighting going on. If you turn off that light GI node, you can see that it completely turns black, and that's how you know you've baked light. Now, one quick way to increase the visual quality of LightMap is to increase the textile scale. Now keep in mind, this increases the bake time and size, so you just gotta be responsible with that. Now you can see how the shadow is not pronounced, and that's because we're using the indirect lighting. This is good if you want real-time shadows and only indirect light baking. So if I turn on this Omni light, you can see that the hard shadow appears. And there's actually a mode where you can use both direct and indirect mode together for baking. To achieve that, you just go to your global illumination section on your light and change it to static. And now if you bake the lights again, you're gonna see that you get both direct and indirect lighting in your scene. Now to quickly demonstrate the purpose of light probes, I'm gonna go ahead and add a dynamic object and just give it a default material. And you can see if I turn the Omni light on, it's getting illuminated by real-time lighting. And you can see how the back faces are pitch black, so it's not getting affected by the global illuminations. And to fix that, we want to go ahead and make it a dynamic object. And you can see how the back face is now being lit by the light probes that were baked when we clicked on Bake Light Maps. And to prove it, you can move it all the way back here, and you can see that it is still receiving light information from the scene. So that's a quick and easy way to get global illumination on your dynamic objects. Here's another quick demonstration. You can see I've made the color of this cube red, and we can see that we are getting the red reflection on this dynamic object. Now, if you click on your LightMap GI node and go down to your data section, you can actually see the file it has created for baking. It also shows you the size and the resolution of it too. So if I go ahead and increase the texel scale and bake again, we can see that the texture size is gonna increase significantly. Now let's go over some of the tweaks we can make to increase the quality. Now the first option here is pretty much you can think of as the ray count or the noisiness of the baking light map. So increasing this will increase the baking time, but also the quality of the baked image. Now the next option is super sampling. What it does, it basically bakes the image at a higher texel scale and then downscales it so you get a better quality. But this will increase the baking time too, but it keeps the baked image size the same. The next option is light bounces. You can pretty much think of it as the rays bouncing off of the object. So increasing this will give you a more realistic effect. You can also play with the indirect energy. So for example, if I set it to a very low value, you can see that it makes the shadows extremely dark. But obviously this is not any more realistic, so I'm just gonna keep it at default for now. The next option is directional, which if your materials have normal maps on them, enabling this will kind of give you a more realistic results, but it will increase the size of the baked image. The next one is interior, which just ignores all the environmental lighting. Use denoiser, I always pretty much keep it on. Bias is for shadow issues, and texel scale we explained. And that's pretty much all of the important settings for the LightMap GI node. Now so far we've only been working on default meshes, but what if you have a model imported, let's say from Blender? Because if I just drag this model in the scene and go ahead and bake the light maps, you can see that it's not going to appear like anything, and the current lighting is because of this real-time Omni light. So if I turn that off, you can see that it's completely pitch black. So in order to fix that, we want to go ahead and re-import this with the UV2s unwrapped. So I'm going to select everything here, go to the imports tab, and on the light baking I'm going to change this to static light maps and then click re-import. And if I go ahead and rebake this whole thing again, you can see that it is added to the baking and it is being lit by the global illumination light map baking. Now you can actually see the UV2 that Godot has unwrapped for this mesh. I'm just gonna open this, and on the mesh itself, you wanna go ahead and click on mesh and view UV2. And this is actually the UV2 that Godot has unwrapped itself. You can actually do it from Blender, but Godot actually recommends you do this on import. Now the cool thing about this is you can actually add emissive materials as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new plane here, and I'm gonna create a new material for it, and on the emission section I'm just gonna assign the Godot logo on it and increase the intensity of it. Now to include this into baking, you also need to unwrap UV2s for it. So let's go ahead and do that. So now let's go ahead and bake this. And now you can see how the scene is being solely lit by this emissive material. And now you can kind of see the noisiness, and it's especially noticeable with this emissive materials. And one way to fix that, as we discussed, is to increase this quality. I'm gonna set it to high, and we can see that it's going to take longer to bake, but it does look better. Now sometimes on especially dark areas you can kind of see this weird banding issues, and you can get rid of that from project settings, and on the anti-aliasing section you can turn on debanding, and that's gonna kind of get rid of some of that banding issues. And so that's been it for this video. Please make sure to share your thoughts in the comment section. I would really appreciate that if you also liked the video. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.